I woke up to the metallic taste of my own blood mixed with cheap cologne that still clung to my skin like a brand. My lips were split down the middle, ribs screaming with every shallow breath I managed to take, and Lawrence's voice was still echoing in my skull like a curse I couldn't shake. "You're just my toy, Peter. Don't you forget it." He was wrong about a lot of things, but he was especially wrong about that. I was never his. Not really. The emergency room at 2 a.m. was supposed to be quiet, a place where broken people could slip in and out without too many questions. I stumbled through those sliding glass doors with my hoodie pulled so low it nearly covered my eyes, praying to whatever deity might listen that nobody would care enough to ask what happened. But the moment my sneakers hit that sterile white floor, everything stopped. Not because of me, because of him. Michael Reeves. He stood near the nurse's station like he owned the entire building, which he probably did in some indirect way, tall enough to make me feel small even from across the room, wrapped in a suit so sharp it could cut glass. And those eyes, God, those eyes were like frozen steel that somehow burned right through you. I'd heard his name whispered in back alleys and dive bars, always in hushed tones, always with a glance over the shoulder, the kind of man you don't make eye contact with if you value your continued existence. But he was staring directly at me. My omega instincts were screaming contradictions. Run, submit, hide, freeze. I felt exposed under that gaze, like he could see every bruise hidden beneath my clothes, every lie I'd told myself to survive another day. The nurse at the desk didn't even notice the sudden shift in atmosphere, too busy with her paperwork and cold coffee. "Name?" she asked without looking up, her pen poised over a clipboard that had seen better days. "Peter," I managed to say, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. I was clutching my left side where it felt like something might be cracked, where Lawrence's boot had connected during what he called discipline. Michael's gaze didn't waver. If anything, it intensified. I could feel the weight of his attention like a physical thing, pressing against my skin, making the air feel thicker. Alphas like him didn't just look at people, they assessed, calculated, claimed. Every instinct in my body was telling me to bolt, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. Maybe it was the pain, or maybe it was something else entirely. Then his scent hit me, cedarwood and smoke, mixed with something dark and almost dangerous that made my knees weak for entirely different reasons than the beating I'd taken. My body betrayed me, swaying slightly toward him even as my mind screamed at me to maintain distance. This was how omegas got into trouble, following their biology instead of their brains. I'd learned that lesson with Lawrence, or at least I thought I had. "Who hurt you?" 3 words. Just 3 simple words, but they sliced through the ambient noise of the ER like a blade through silk. His voice was low, controlled, the kind of calm that suggested violence was always just beneath the surface. I froze completely, my heart hammering against my damaged ribs hard enough to make me wince. Nobody had ever asked me that question. Not the nurses who'd seen me here twice before. Not my so-called friends who'd stopped calling months ago. Not even my own reflection in the mirror during my more honest moments. The question itself felt like a trap, like if I answered truthfully something irreversible would happen. "Nobody," I lied. And the word tasted like ash in my mouth. My hands were shaking now and I shoved them into my hoodie pocket to hide the tremors. Michael moved closer. Just 2 steps, but it felt like he'd crossed an entire universe. I could feel the heat radiating from him despite the aggressive air conditioning pumping through the ER. "Don't lie to me, Peter." My name in his mouth sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with the fact that I hadn't told him my name yet. The nurse had barely registered it. How did he know? I should have walked away. Should have told him to mind his own business and focus on whatever Mafia emergency had brought him here at 2 in the morning. But when I finally found the courage to look up and meet those gray eyes head on, I saw something that completely blindsided me. Rage. Pure, unfiltered, barely controlled rage. But it wasn't directed at me, it was directed at whoever had put these marks on my skin. I'd seen anger before. Plenty of it. Lawrence's explosive violence. Random strangers annoyed at inconveniences. Frustration and irritation. But this was different. This was personal fury on behalf of someone he didn't even know. "I don't know you," I whispered, confusion and wariness mixing in equal measure. My voice sounded small even to my own ears. Michael's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. He reached up and adjusted his coat. An expensive thing that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. But his eyes never left mine. You don't? Not yet. But you will. Then he turned and walked away without another word. His footsteps measured and precise against the linoleum floor. He didn't look back. Didn't pause. Just disappeared through the ER doors like he'd never been there at all. Except for the lingering scent of cedar wood and smoke that clung to the air where he'd stood. I was left standing there with my heart racing like I'd just run a marathon. My mind spinning with questions I didn't have answers to. The nurse finally called me forward for triage, and I went through the motions mechanically, answering questions with practiced lies. Accepting ice packs and bandages. Nodding at instructions I wasn't really hearing. But all I could think about was the way Michael Reeves had looked at me. Like I mattered. Like someone hurting me was a personal offense against him. Like I was worth protecting. I'd spent so long believing Lawrence's version of reality, that I was worthless, that I was lucky anyone wanted me at all, that the abuse was somehow my fault for not being good enough. And then a complete stranger, the most dangerous man in the city according to every rumor I'd ever heard, looked at me for 30 seconds and decided I deserved better. It was probably nothing. Just a powerful man's momentary interest in a random omega who'd stumbled across his path. Tomorrow he wouldn't even remember my face. That's what I told myself as I finally got my ribs wrapped and my prescriptions filled. But deep down, in a place I didn't want to examine too closely, I knew that wasn't true. Something had shifted in that emergency room. Something that couldn't be taken back or ignored. And as I stepped out into the pre-dawn darkness, I couldn't shake the feeling that Michael Reeves had just changed the entire trajectory of my life, without either of us meaning for it to happen. I thought that would be the end of it. One strange encounter in an emergency room. A powerful man's passing curiosity. Nothing more. I should have known better. I'd never been that lucky. 2 nights later, I was in my new studio apartment. A cramped box on the 5th floor of a building that probably violated multiple safety codes. I'd moved here specifically because Lawrence didn't know about it, had used cash from my secret stash to pay the deposit. It was supposed to be my fresh start, my escape route. Apparently Lawrence was more resourceful than I'd given him credit for. The pounding on my door started at 11 p.m. Heavy, aggressive fists against cheap wood that wouldn't hold up to much abuse. His voice carried through the thin barrier, slurred with alcohol and fury. "Peter, open this door right now or I swear I'll break it down." I was pressed against the far wall. Lights off, phone clutched in my hand as I debated calling the police. But what would I tell them? My ex-boyfriend was outside being loud. They'd tell me it was a civil matter. Maybe send a patrol car in an hour or 2 if I was lucky. By then, Lawrence would either be inside or I'd be the one arrested for disturbing the peace. My omega instincts were in overdrive, begging me to submit, to open the door and accept whatever punishment he deemed appropriate. That's what I'd been conditioned to do for 18 months. Make myself small, make myself compliant, make it stop hurting as fast as possible. But something had changed since that night in the ER. Some small spark of defiance had been lit by a stranger's concerned rage. "You can't hide from me," Lawrence shouted, and I heard the sound of him throwing his weight against the door. The frame creaked ominously. "You're mine, Peter. Mine." My heart was in my throat. This was it. He'd break through, and this time there would be no ER visit afterward, because he wouldn't stop until, "Touch that door one more time and I'll make sure you never use those hands again." The voice was cold, measured, absolutely devoid of emotion, which somehow made it infinitely more terrifying than any amount of shouting. I knew that voice. It had been replaying in my head for 2 days straight. "Michael." I scrambled to the door and looked through the peephole, my breath catching at the scene outside. Lawrence was on the ground, blood streaming from his nose, and Michael stood over him like a wolf who'd just cornered its prey. Even in the dim hallway light, I could see the barely controlled violence in every line of his body. "Who the hell are you?" Lawrence spat, trying to push himself up and failing. Michael crouched down, getting on Lawrence's level in a move that was somehow more threatening than standing over him had been. "I'm the person who owns this building, and every building on this block, and the entire neighborhood for that matter, which means you're trespassing on my property, threatening one of my tenants." I didn't know if that was true, but the way Lawrence's face went pale suggested he believed it. I didn't. "You were just leaving," Michael finished, standing back up. "And if I ever see you within 100 yards of this address again, They won't find enough of you to identify the body. Are we mayor? Lawrence scrambled to his feet and ran. Actually ran, leaving a trail of blood drops on the stained carpet. I watched him disappear down the stairs, then slowly opened my door to find Michael standing there, completely calm despite what had just happened. Pack a bag, he said simply. You're coming with me. What? No. I can't just. The words tumbled out in a confused rush. I don't even know you. That's exactly why you can come with me, Michael replied, his tone suggesting this was perfectly logical. Lawrence knows where you live now. He knows you're alone. He knows the building's security is non-existent. If you stay here, he'll come back. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, but he'll come back. And next time, I might not be here. The truth of his words hit me like cold water. Lawrence had found me once. He'd find me again. The restraining order I'd filed had been about as useful as tissue paper. Moving to a new place had bought me what, 48 hours? Why were you here? I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice despite the fact that he'd just saved me. How did you know? Michael's expression didn't change. I have people who keep me informed about my properties. When someone showed up drunk and aggressive, I was notified. The fact that it was you behind that door was just coincidence. He was lying. I could tell he was lying. But I was too tired and scared to call him on it. I packed quickly. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, a photo of my parents that I'd managed to keep hidden from Lawrence. Everything fit into one duffel bag, a depressing reminder of how small my life had become. Michael waited patiently in the doorway, his presence both comforting and unsettling in equal measure. His car was exactly what I'd expected. Sleek, black, expensive enough to feed a family for a year. The interior smelled like leather and that cedarwood scent that seemed to cling to everything about him. We drove in silence through empty streets, the city lights painting abstract patterns across the windshield. Where are we going? I finally asked when the silence became too heavy. Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. He glanced at me briefly before returning his attention to the road. Somewhere Lawrence can't reach you. Somewhere you can sleep without wondering if he's going to kick the door in. Is that answer enough? It shouldn't have been, but it was. The safe house turned out to be a penthouse in one of the newer high-rises downtown. The kind of place I'd only seen in magazines. All floor-to-ceiling windows and modern furniture that probably cost more than my entire college education. Michael led me to a bedroom that was bigger than my old apartment, complete with an attached bathroom and a view of the city that took my breath away. Get some rest, he said, handing me a keycard. We'll talk in the morning. There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry, and everything in the closet should fit reasonably well. Michael, I said as he turned to leave, the name feeling strange on my tongue. Why are you doing this? He paused in the doorway, his back to me. For a long moment I didn't think he was going to answer. Then, without turning around, he said, because someone should, and apparently nobody else has. The door closed softly behind him, leaving me alone in a room that felt both like a sanctuary and a gilded cage. I sat on the edge of the bed, soft, expensive, completely foreign, and tried to process what had just happened. A mafia boss had saved me from my abusive ex and brought me to his personal safe house. This was either the best decision I'd ever made or the worst, and I wouldn't know which until it was too late to turn back. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows. I'd forgotten to close and the smell of coffee drifting from somewhere in the penthouse. For a moment I couldn't remember where I was. My brain still foggy with sleep and the lingering effects of the pain medication I'd taken. Then reality crashed back. Lawrence. Michael, the escape in the middle of the night. I found Michael in the kitchen and the sight stopped me in my tracks. Gone was the intimidating mafia boss in the expensive suit. This version wore a simple white t-shirt and dark jeans, sleeves pushed up to reveal surprisingly muscular forearms. He was focused on scrambling eggs in a pan, looking almost domestic. You cook your own breakfast? The question came out before I could stop it. He looked up with what might have been amusement. Did you imagine I had a personal chef on call 24/7? Honestly? Yes. A real smile crossed his face. Brief but genuine. I like doing things myself. Keeps me grounded. Besides, trusting someone else with your food is a good way to end up poisoned in my line of work. He said it so casually, like casual poisoning was just another Tuesday inconvenience. He slid a plate across the counter toward me. Eggs, toast, some fresh fruit. Nothing fancy, but it was warm and clearly made with care. I couldn't remember the last time anyone had cooked for me. We ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. I kept stealing glances at him when I thought he wasn't looking, trying to reconcile the dangerous man from the hallway with this version who made breakfast and smiled occasionally. He had a small scar above his left eyebrow that I hadn't noticed before, and his hair was slightly messy in a way that made him look younger. "You're staring again," he said without looking up from his coffee, a hint of teasing in his voice. Heat flooded my cheeks. "Sorry, I'm just trying to figure you out." "Good luck with that. Most people give up after a while." He set his mug down and finally met my eyes. "Ask whatever you want to ask, Peter." I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. "Why did you really help me?" The truth this time, not the convenient coincidence story. Michael leaned back against the counter, studying me with an intensity that made me want to look away. "Have you heard of the Reeves family?" Of course I had. Everyone in the city knew that name, whispered with respect, fear, or both. They controlled half the underground economy and had enough legitimate business fronts to keep the authorities confused. Crossing them was generally considered a terminal decision. "You're the eldest son," I said, pieces clicking together. "The one who's supposed to take over everything. Already have. Actually, my father retired last year." He paused, seeming to choose his next words carefully. "Part of my responsibilities include making sure certain things don't happen in our territory. Omegaverse is on that list." My stomach dropped. "So this is just business? Territory management?" His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "If it was just business, I would have sent one of my men to handle Lawrence. I wouldn't have shown up personally. I definitely wouldn't have brought you here." "Then what is this?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. Michael pushed off the counter and crossed the distance between us in 3 measured steps. He didn't touch me, but I could feel the heat radiating from him, could smell that cedarwood scent that made my omega instincts purr with want and need. My body remembered what it felt like to be close to an alpha who wasn't cruel even if my mind was screaming warnings. "You want honesty?" he asked, his voice dropping lower. "I saw you walk into that ER, covered in bruises, trying so hard to be invisible. And something in me just broke. I wanted to find whoever did that to you and make them understand what real pain feels like." My breath caught. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." His hand came up, hovering near my face, but not quite touching. "I know you're stronger than you think you are. I know you deserve better than what you've been given. And I know that the thought of someone hurting you again makes me want to burn the entire city down." This was crazy. This was absolutely insane. Michael was a criminal, a dangerous man who probably had blood on his hands. I should be terrified. I should be planning my escape. Instead, I found myself leaning into that almost touch, craving the contact despite every rational thought in my head. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not of you exactly. Of this. Whatever this is." Something softened in his expression. "Fear is smart. Fear keeps you alive. But I need you to understand something, Peter. I will never hurt you the way he did. That's not a promise I make lightly." "How can I trust that? How can I trust anyone after?" My voice broke and I hated myself for the weakness. "You can't," Michael said simply, finally letting his hand drop. "Trust isn't something I can demand or prove with words. It's something you'll have to decide for yourself, in your own time. All I can do is show you, consistently, that I'm not him." He stepped back, giving me space I simultaneously wanted and resented. "Stay as long as you need. This room is yours. No expectations, no obligations. If you want to leave tomorrow, I'll arrange a new place for you somewhere Lawrence will never find you. If you want to stay, you're welcome here." Just like that, just like that. I studied his face, looking for the angle, the manipulation, the hidden cost. But all I saw was sincerity mixed with something that looked almost like hope. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was offering me safety without demanding anything in return. It didn't make sense. People like Michael Reeves didn't do charity, especially not for random omegas they'd met once in an emergency room. "What do you get out of this?" I asked bluntly. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Maybe I get to sleep at night knowing I did one decent thing. Maybe I'm selfish and just want you close by because something about you feels important. Or maybe I'm just tired of watching people get hurt when I have the power to stop it." That's 3 different answers. Maybe all 3 are true. He picked up our empty plates and moved to the sink. You don't have to figure me out right now, Peter. We've got time. Time. Such a simple word, but loaded with implications. Time meant staying here in this beautiful cage with a man who made my instincts sing and my logic scream. Time meant possibly falling for someone whose world was built on violence and blood. But time also meant safety, meant breathing without constant fear, meant maybe, possibly, learning to trust again. Okay, I heard myself say, I'll stay. For now. Michael's shoulders relaxed slightly, like he'd been holding tension I hadn't even noticed. Good. That's good. And as I watched him wash dishes with the same focused attention he probably gave to running a criminal empire, I realized I just made a decision that would change everything. I just hoped I'd live long enough not to regret it. The next few days revealed pieces of Michael's real life that I'd only glimpsed before. He woke at 5 every morning without an alarm, the mattress shifting as he slipped out of bed in the room next to mine. I'd hear him in the home gym, the rhythmic sounds of his workout filtering through the walls. Then came the phone calls, sometimes in English, sometimes in languages I didn't recognize. His voice always measured and controlled, no matter what crisis was being discussed on the other end. By 7 he'd be in his suits again, checking his gun with the same casual attention most people gave to their car keys. He'd leave looking like he was heading to a board meeting, which I supposed he was, just a very different kind of board. Some nights he came home late with blood on his cuffs. He never talked about it and I never asked. There was an unspoken agreement between us. He gave me space, I didn't question the darkness that came with his world. It was a fragile balance, and I wasn't sure how long it could last. I spent most of my time in the penthouse reading books from his surprisingly extensive library. Classic literature mixed with philosophy texts and strategy guides that probably had more practical application in his line of work than I wanted to consider. It was a Wednesday evening when things shifted again. You should get out more, Michael said, his voice startling me from where I was curled up on the leather couch with a worn copy of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I looked up to find him loosening his tie, exhaustion evident in the lines around his eyes. Where would I go? He collapsed onto the opposite end of the couch with a heavy sigh. Anywhere. The city. Coffee shops. Normal things that normal people do. Lawrence is still out there, I pointed out, closing my book. His friends are probably still looking. Something dark flickered across Michael's face. Lawrence won't be bothering you anymore. I've made certain of that. The way he said it sent a chill down my spine. Not of fear but of recognition. What did you do? His smile was thin and dangerous. A reminder of exactly who I was living with. Things you're better off not knowing the details of. Let's just say he's been strongly encouraged to relocate permanently. I should have felt horrified. Should have been disturbed by the casual way he discussed what was clearly some form of violence or threat. Instead, I felt something else entirely, relief, mixed with a confusing sense of being protected. For the first time in months, I could breathe without constantly looking over my shoulder. I don't want to be a burden, I said quietly, the words feeling inadequate even as I spoke them. Michael's head turned toward me sharply, fatigue replaced by sudden intensity. Where did you get that idea? Because I can't give you anything back. You've done all this for me and I'm just… Peter. He shifted closer, his knees almost touching mine as he leaned forward. You're not a burden. You've never been a burden. And I don't expect anything from you in return. Then what do you want? The question came out more desperately than I intended. There has to be something. People like you don't just help random omegas out of the goodness of their hearts. Michael reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. When I didn't, his hand closed gently around mine. The contact sent electricity up my arm, my omega instincts immediately craving more. I want you to feel safe, he said, his voice lower now, more intimate. I want to see that constant fear leave your eyes. I want you to understand that you have value, Peter. A value, not the lies that bastard convinced you to believe. Tears pricked at my eyes. Nobody had ever spoken to me like this. Like I mattered beyond what I could provide or endure. Michael, I don't know how… His phone erupted with a sharp, urgent ringtone that shattered the moment. Michael's entire demeanor changed instantly, his body going rigid as he answered. What? A pause. When? Another pause, and I watched his jaw clench so hard I thought he might crack a tooth. I'm on my way. He stood abruptly, already moving toward his room where I knew he kept additional weapons. What happened? I asked, fear creeping into my voice. Roy's been taken. Michael's voice was cold now, all traces of the gentle man from moments ago erased. My brother. Someone kidnapped him. My blood turned to ice. I'd heard about Roy, Michael's younger brother, more reckless and less cautious than Michael himself. He was the obvious target for anyone wanting to hurt the Reeves family. I'm coming with you, I said, standing up before I could second-guess the decision. Absolutely not. Michael was already loading a different gun, checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. What if you don't come back? My voice cracked on the words. What if something happens and I'm just sitting here not knowing? He paused, really looking at me for the first time since the call. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the need to keep me safe warring with something else I couldn't quite name. Stay in the car, he finally said. You stay in the car, doors locked, and you don't move until I come back. That's the only way you're coming, I promise. He studied me for another long moment, then nodded curtly. Let's go. The drive to the docks was tense and silent. Michael made several calls, barking orders in that cold, commanding voice that reminded me he wasn't just a man who'd shown me kindness, he was someone truly dangerous. His men were already gathering at the warehouse when we arrived. Dark figures melting out of the shadows with weapons drawn. Remember your promise, Michael said, his hand on the door handle. I nodded, unable to speak past the fear lodging in my throat. He hesitated, then leaned across the console and pressed a quick, fierce kiss to my forehead. Stay safe, Peter. Then he was gone, disappearing into the darkness with his men. I sat in the locked car, heart pounding, as minutes stretched into an eternity. The warehouse loomed before me, old and decrepit, the kind of place where terrible things happened and nobody asked questions. Then I heard the gunshots, sharp cracks that echoed across the empty dock, followed by shouting. My hands gripped steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. More shots. A scream that was abruptly cut off. Then silence. The kind of silence that felt heavier than all the noise that had preceded it. I couldn't do this. Couldn't sit here not knowing if Michael was hurt or dying or... I was out of the car before I consciously made the decision, running toward the warehouse entrance. Every instinct screamed that this was stupid, that I was violating the one condition Michael had given me. But the thought of him in there, possibly bleeding out while I sat safely in a car, was unbearable. The warehouse door was ajar, and I slipped inside. What I saw would haunt me forever. Bodies on the concrete floor, blood splattered across rusted metal walls, the acrid smell of gunpowder thick in the air. And in the center of it all stood Michael, his suit jacket torn, cradling Roy against his chest. Roy was alive, hurt but conscious, blood seeping through a makeshift bandage on his side. I told you to stay in the car. Michael's voice was rough with anger and relief as he spotted me. I couldn't, I said simply, even though I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. Roy lifted his head weakly, managing a pained grin. So this is the Peter you won't shut up about. Save your strength, Michael snapped. But there was warmth beneath the harsh words. As we helped Roy toward the exit, sirens wailing in the distance, I realized something fundamental had shifted. I'd crossed a line tonight, left the safety Michael had provided, and stepped into his world of violence and blood. There was no going back now, and strangely, I didn't want to. The penthouse had transformed into a makeshift medical facility. Michael's personal doctor, a middle-aged woman named Dr. Chen, who asked no questions and worked with efficient precision, had cleaned and stitched Roy's gunshot wound. It had missed anything vital, but he'd lost enough blood to need a transfusion, and several days of strict bed rest. I sat in the corner of the guest room, arms wrapped around myself, trying to process what I'd witnessed. The bodies, the blood, the casual way Michael had moved through it all like he was simply completing another task on his daily schedule. This was his reality, the world he inhabited when he left the penthouse each morning, and I'd chosen to see it, chosen to step into it despite his warnings. Peter. Michael's voice pulled me from my spiraling thoughts. He stood in the doorway, jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal 4 arms marked with fresh bruises. Roy's stable. Dr. Chen says he'll be fine. I nodded, unable to find words. Michael crossed the room and sat on the ottoman in front of me, close enough that our knees touched. Why did you come inside? He asked quietly. You promised to stay in the car. I heard the shots and then nothing, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought I couldn't just sit there imagining the worst. You could have been killed. One of the shooters was still conscious when you walked in. If I hadn't already disarmed him. Michael's hands clenched into fists. You can't do that again, Peter. You can't put yourself at risk like that. Neither can you, I shot back, finding some spark of defiance. But you do it every single day. His gray eyes searched mine, something shifting in their depths. It's different. This is my life, my world. You didn't sign up for this. Maybe I am now. The words surprised even me. Maybe I'm tired of being protected from reality. Maybe I want to understand what you face, what you deal with. This isn't some romantic notion, Michael said harshly. This is blood and violence and moral compromises that most people couldn't live with. The things I've done, the choices I make, they're not the kind you come back from unchanged. I leaned forward, closing more of the distance between us. Do you think I don't already know that? I saw what you're capable of tonight. And yes, it scared me. But it also showed me that you'll do whatever it takes to protect the people you care about. Including you, he said, his voice dropping lower. Especially you. My breath caught at the intensity in those two words. Why? You still haven't really told me why you care so much about what happens to me. Michael was quiet for a long moment, his gaze never leaving mine. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight I hadn't heard before. Because from the moment I saw you in that ER, something clicked into place. Like a part of me I didn't know was missing suddenly made sense. I looked at you broken and trying so hard to be brave, and I knew I'd do anything to make sure nobody hurt you again. That's not normal, I whispered even as my heart raced. People don't just feel that way about strangers. I know. He reached up slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away and cupped my face in his hands. They were warm and rough with calluses. The hands of someone who fought his own babes. I can't explain it rationally. Maybe it's fate or biology, or just recognition. All I know is that you matter to me, Peter. More than you should. More than is probably wise. I could feel tears building behind my eyes. I'm still scared. Not of you, but of letting myself believe this is real. Every time I've trusted someone, I'm not him, Michael interrupted firmly. I will never be him, and I will spend however long it takes proving that to you. The conviction in his voice broke something loose inside me. I don't want you to be alone in this, I said, the words tumbling out. I don't want to hide from the darkness anymore. And I took a shaky breath. I want to be with you even knowing how dangerous your world is. Something raw and unguarded flashed across Michael's face. Then he was kissing me, not gentle like the first time but desperate and claiming. His hands slid into my hair as he deepened the kiss and I responded with equal fervor, channeling months of loneliness and fear and desperate hope into the contact. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Michael rested his forehead against mine. I love you, he said, the words rough and unpolished. From that first night at the hospital, I didn't want to admit it, didn't want to put that pressure on you. But seeing you tonight, seeing you scared for me, I can't keep pretending this is just protection or obligation. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I love you too, I whispered. It terrifies me how much I love you. He kissed me again, softer this time, almost reverent. Then we'll be terrified together. We stayed like that for a while, wrapped in each other until Dr. Chen knocked to say she was leaving. Michael walked her out while I tried to compose myself, wiping at my face and attempting to calm my racing heart. But as I looked out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below, I didn't notice the shadow moving on the rooftop across the street, didn't see the figure with binoculars focused directly on the penthouse. Didn't know that Lawrence had been watching, planning, gathering allies for one final play. Michael returned and pulled me into his arms. And I let myself believe, just for that moment, that we were safe. That love could be enough to protect us from what was coming. I should have known better. The city had gone quiet after Michael's question that night in the ER. The entire criminal underworld aware that someone had caught the attention of the most dangerous man in the territory. But silence didn't mean surrender. It meant preparation. Lawrence had connections I didn't know about, resources he'd kept hidden, and a hatred that had festered into something far more dangerous than simple abusive control. He'd built an army in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike, and we'd just given him the perfect target. Not just me anymore, but the thing he knew would hurt Michael most. Our love had become a weapon, and we didn't even know it yet. As Michael held me close, pressing kisses to my temple and murmuring promises of forever. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. Something was coming. Something that would test every promise we'd just made to each other. I just hoped we'd survive it. The attack came at 4 in the morning when the world was at its most vulnerable. The explosion shattered my dreams and the penthouse windows simultaneously. I jolted awake to the sound of alarms screaming and glass raining down like deadly snow. Michael was already moving, gun in hand, shouting orders into his phone as he pulled on a Kevlar vest. I hadn't known he kept beside the bed. "Basement now," he commanded, tossing me a vest of my own. "Peter, move!" But I'd already seen them from the broken windows, at least 15 figures surrounding the building. And leading them, unmistakable even in the pre-dawn darkness, was Lawrence. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was war. "I'm not leaving you," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the terror coursing through me. "This isn't negotiable." The penthouse door exploded inward, the blast making my ears ring. Smoke poured in, followed by armed figures wearing tactical gear. Michael shoved me behind him and opened fire, his movements precise and controlled despite the chaos. Roy appeared from the guest room, still bandaged but armed, taking position beside his brother. The firefight was deafening. Bullets tore through expensive furniture and priceless art. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to stay small, trying not to be a liability. Then Lawrence's voice cut through the noise, amplified by a megaphone from outside. "You can't protect him forever, Reeves. He belongs to me. Always has. Always will." Something inside me snapped. All the fear, all the months of abuse, all the times I'd stayed silent and submissive. It crystallized into rage so pure it burned away everything else. "I was never yours," I screamed back, my voice raw with fury. "I'm not anyone's property." Lawrence appeared in the doorway, madness gleaming in his eyes, flanked by 2 men with automatic weapons, but his focus was entirely on me. "You ungrateful little, after everything I gave you, Vevin, I did for you. You mean after every time you hit me?" I shot back, standing up despite Michael's attempt to keep me down. "After you convinced me I was worthless? That's not love, Lawrence. That's not love, Lawrence. That's not even close." "Enough talking," Lawrence snarled, raising his gun and pointing it directly at me. Time seemed to slow down. I saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Saw Michael's eyes go wide with horror as he tried to reach me. Saw Roy diving from the side. Then Michael was in front of me, his body a shield between me and the bullet. The gunshot cracked like thunder. "No!" The scream tore from my throat as Michael staggered back, blood blooming across his shoulder. But he didn't go down. Instead, he returned fire with deadly precision, his shot catching Lawrence in the leg and sending him crashing to the floor. The 2 men with Lawrence hesitated for just a second, long enough for Roy to take them both out with carefully placed shots. More of Michael's men poured in through the stairwell, having finally fought their way past Lawrence's forces in the lobby. The battle turned quickly after that, Lawrence's hired guns realizing they were outmatched and outnumbered. Some surrendered, some fled. Lawrence himself lay bleeding and moaning on the marble floor. I ran to Michael, catching him as he finally allowed himself to sink down, his hand pressed to his shoulder. "You idiots," I sobbed, my hands shaking as I tried to assess the damage. "You could have died. Better me than you," he gritted out, his face pale but his eyes still fierce. "Every single time, Peter. I'll take that bullet every single time." Dr. Chen arrived within minutes. She must have been on standby somewhere nearby, as she worked on Michael's shoulder, efficiently cleaning and dressing the wound. I held his other hand so tight I was probably cutting off circulation. "It's a through and through," Dr. Chen announced. "Missed the bone and major arteries. You'll be sore as hell for a few weeks, but you'll live." Relief made me dizzy. The police came eventually, but this was Michael's territory and the officers who showed up were clearly on his payroll. Lawrence and his surviving men were carted off to locations I suspected had nothing to do with official booking procedures. Questions were asked and answered with carefully prepared explanations. By sunrise, it was like the attack had never happened, except for the broken windows and bullet holes. When everyone finally left and it was just us again, Michael, Roy, and me in the damaged penthouse, I sat beside Michael's bed and let myself fall apart. All the adrenaline drained away, leaving nothing but shaking and tears. "Hey," Michael said softly, reaching for me with his good arm. "Come here." I curled against his uninjured side, careful not to jostle his shoulder. You can't ever do that again, I whispered fiercely. You can't throw yourself in front of bullets for me. Can't promise that, he said, pressing a kiss to my hair. Keeping you safe is non-negotiable. I need you alive more than I need to be protected. His arm tightened around me. Then I guess we'll just have to make sure nobody shoots at either of us anymore. Roy snorted from where he was slumped in an armchair. Good luck with that in this family. Despite everything, I found myself laughing, a slightly hysterical sound, but real nonetheless. 3 months later, I stood on a rooftop garden as the sun set over the city, wearing a simple suit and holding Michael's hand. Roy stood beside his brother, healthy and grinning. A handful of Michael's most trusted people formed a small circle around us. The bonding ceremony was nothing like the elaborate affairs I'd imagined as a child. No crowds, no photographers, no strangers. Just us and the people who mattered, making promises under an open sky. When Michael took my hand and pressed his teeth gently to my wrist, marking me as his bonded mate, I felt the connection snap into place like it had been waiting for this moment all along. The biological imperative mixed with something deeper: choice, love, commitment. Ready to officially join the family, Mr. Reeves? Michael asked with a small smile, using the name I'd legally changed to the week before. I laughed, the sound free and genuine in a way I'd forgotten was possible. I've been ready since the moment you asked who hurt me. When we kissed, the city lights began flickering on below us, 1,000 points of light in the gathering darkness. I thought about how far I'd come from that broken Omega in the ER, how much I'd survived and overcome. We'd walked through fire and come out the other side transformed. And now, with Michael's mark on my skin and his love in my heart, I knew that whatever challenges came next, we'd face them together. The city had gone silent when Michael Reeves asked his question. Now it would learn to fear what we'd become. Not just a powerful alpha and his protected Omega, but true partners who'd choose each other over and over again, no matter the cost. This was our beginning, and nothing would tear us apart.